and welcome to Understanding Photography with Kim Ayres, episode 84. Looks like I had another little trip up there in the beginning. Yes, So, my apologies. Here we go, 84 episodes in, and I'm still managing to mess up the beginnings. So, tonight we are going to be looking at the book photo challenge that I set up last week, and we've had about 20 odd people put in their images, and so we're going to take a look through them, give a little bits of feedback, and hopefully be inspired by what everybody has been up to. So the idea then last week was that books, amazing things. They contain knowledge and ideas and dreams and thoughts and facts and fictions and numbers and pictures and letters and text and all sorts of amazing things. And they contain stories as well. So could we create stories out of books? Could we create photographs that sort of encompass some kind of element of communication with somebody else, with the viewer? This was the idea. So that was the challenge that was set, and that's what we're going to be looking through tonight. We're here live on YouTube. If you care to leave a comment, I can see there's a few people in already. I'll take a look through those in a moment. Let me know where you're from. And yeah, it's always good to get the chat flowing. What else? If you find these podcasts useful, inspiring, interesting, educational, then do consider buymeacoffee.com/Kim Ayres as a way of supporting these podcasts. And right, okay, that's kind of where we're at. So let's take a little look. So I see we've got a few more comments in already. So Thean is saying hello from West Central Florida. Glad you can make it along, Thean. I don't remember you joining in and commenting before, though I do know you've always been really supportive, so that's great that you're managing to make it to one of the live ones. Pat is here saying hi all from Somerset. Maggie's saying hello everyone, as is Meg. Maggie my wife, Meg my daughter, also in the same house, watching from different screens obviously. Nurije says hi everyone. Rosemary says hi to the three Ayres and Pat and Thean. Roy says greetings all from West Yorkshire. Viji is saying good evening everyone. Viji's coming in from India. Stacy from Pennsylvania saying good afternoon on this cold sunny Tuesday. Brian is saying hi all from Dumfries. Sandra says hello everyone, greetings from Birmingham. Gary says hello all from the High Peak District. And Inga is saying good evening from Oslo. I'm glad you can make it, Inga, tonight, because quite often I know you're quite busy on a Tuesday night and kind of can't make it here too early, but glad you're with us. That's great. Okay, cool. That gets us underway. That gets us started. So, okay, let's work our way through. Now, I think that what we'll do then is I will double click on that. I will do that. There we go. And flip over to here. And here is our first entry into the book challenge, which is Robert. And Robert from Texas says, I took this last year at an antique store in Denison, Texas. Something about these old books looked appealing to me. I suppose the owner set it up to be appealing. That's probably true. This is one of many subjects that I found in the store. Hopefully you will find it interesting as well. Well, I think, Robert, it's a great start, and I like the angle you've taken out. You're quite low down. You've got the diagonals in it, sits in there, and you can start to see that there's a lot of texture in this, just from the peeling cover to the string, and a lovely old bit of kind of material that it's sitting on. I think what I do have a concern with here, though, is the quality of the photo. Now, I'm guessing, obviously, if you're taking this indoors in an old shop, antique store, that there wasn't a lot of light, which is a bit of a shame. I mean, I think it probably works. This works fine at if you're looking at it on a phone or maybe a tablet. But certainly when I look at it on my kind of larger screen, what I'm very aware is the detail, isn't it? Which is a shame. I mean, you've got this lovely kind of mouldy patterning on the pages, but we can't really see the pages. It's very, very noisy photo. It's a bit of a shame, because I tend to feel that with something like this, it is the detail that's really going to make it. Part of it is because it's the texture. You know, it is all about texture. And we've got a nice little chunk. We can see the sort of ripped cover here. But I want to sort of get in and be able to feel it. So I think if you're going to do something like this again, Robert, you really want to see if you can make sure you can draw out as much texture as you possibly can out of a picture like this. That being said, I think it's a great find, and it's a nice composition. Kind of gives us that sense of, if we're going to talk about photographing books, hey, you've photographed books. So it's a good start to the evening and a smug point for you there, I think. So thanks for sending that one in, Robert. Right, okay. What I will do is, in between, I will throw in some. In between each book, each photograph, I will come back and take a look at the comments. So feel free to keep joining in, chatting, leaving comments and thoughts. Now, I'm not totally sure. I think I'm something like about 10 to 15 seconds ahead of you. So it may well be that I will make a comment or come back. It won't appear that there'll be any comments, and then you'll type something. So sometimes, quite often, what happens with this is I don't get to actually see the comment until after I've seen the following photo. You get there in the end. Anyway, hopefully, if you want to leave any comments, do eventually. I will get there. Viji says, these books are a treasure, imagining the journey these books have taken. Precious, love the jute knot texture. And Inga says, very nice, Robert, an inspiring photo. Well, unfortunately, Robert did say he was going to try and get along tonight, but obviously didn't make it here early enough to be here for the first photo. Okay, getting slightly worried by the fact that the little screen that I have over in the corner of the feedback of the live streaming seems to keep pausing and swirling, so I'm not entirely sure whether I'm running smoothly or it keeps kind of pausing and stopping. I have a little green symbol saying that the streaming is fine. I seem to remember last week there was bits where my image was pausing, but the voice seemed to be okay, so hopefully that's the case. If you find that I freeze up completely, refresh the page. We found in the past that sometimes that happens with people, and refreshing the whole page is the thing that tends to work for it. Right, okay. Oh, Sandra says she likes the books too, Robert. Right, okay, let's move on to the next one. All right, Roy's saying all okay here, and Sandra is saying the stream is okay at the moment. Oh, that's good to know. Thank you for the feedback. Okay, so our next image then is from Sarah, and Sarah says, hi Kim, this is my submission for the books, came across this randomly on an autumnal photography walk this weekend and had to take the photo. Yeah, I can understand that, especially if you know there's going to be a book challenge. You're out walking, you come across an old, let's see, this looks like a dictionary, judging by the words that are, we've got the B's. It starts with blank, goes down to blend, across to block, and down to blockage. So, yeah, an old thrown away book, or dropped, or lost, forgotten. Looks like sort of probably in one of the pine forests, lots of pine needles and stuff sitting around on the ground around it. Slightly kind of burnt look, almost like it's survived a fire. So it instantly feels like a kind of a bit of a story. The pages look a bit damp, look like they've sort of been stuck and then ripped. So there's a lot of texture in there. My slight worry about, I think compositionally it would have been, I would have to say maybe go for a diagonal, turn it round about 45 degrees or something like that, or even 90 degrees, because there's a little bit where kind of turning my head to sort of see, because the thing is about a book, an open book like this, is you can't help but want to read the words. We get drawn to the words, we want to know what's on there. So I think something like this, again, if you want to sort of play it up a little bit more, is to even try and find, maybe just flip through the pages until you actually get to some words which you feel are interesting or relevant or enhance the story. Maybe you get, you flip it over to the words that say woodland or walking or forest or pine or discarded. It could be a good one. That kind of idea. It's about the idea, what we're trying to do with our photography is create stories. And then every element within the photo is either enhancing that narrative, that story, or detracting from it. And if there's a possibility of enhancing it, then you kind of want to look at that. And so the words on a book are an opportunity to enhance the narrative. So kind of worth thinking about that if you get another opportunity. So thanks for sending that one in, Sarah. Nice find, and very timely for the for this podcast. Okay. Oh, Pat and Brian and Viji are all saying that the streaming is fine. That's good to know. Oh, Mac says, evening all, late again. It's okay, Mac, I've not done your picture yet, you're fine. And April says, hi Mac, welcome, just got here myself. Cool, okay, we're glad you could make it along, April. Excellent, okay, right, so next picture then. Let's move on to Sandra. Sandra says, here is my macro photo for the book challenge. Hold on one sec, once again, I just need to, that's what I need to do. And then I do that, yes. I don't know why I'm suddenly forgetting which button I'm supposed to press to swap screens. Right, okay. So Sandra has gone straight for the picture of the Bible. It's open at Psalms, and we've got a crucifix in the background, out of focus. So fairly narrow depth of field here. So we're getting the top of Psalms 84:15. That bit's in focus. It starts to go out of focus as we move into the third and fourth lines down. We've also, it's slightly in focus above that, and then moves out of focus as we go further up the page and across the page. So this is one of those things, Sandra, where I think if you're, again, it's that, you know, because if there are words on the page which we can read, those are the ones we're getting drawn to. It's then a case of being very clear about the ones you want. So I'm assuming that this reading's year 1, Old Testament, Hosea 6, is the one that you're wanting to draw our attention to. If you're drawing our attention to it, though, essentially, what part, is it just the first couple of lines? Were you wanting the whole psalm? In which case, what should be in focus, what shouldn't? These are the kind of things you need to consider. You've got the crucifix sitting in the background. The other thing I would think about this is the lighting. I quite like the kind of warm light that you've got, but it does look overhead. If I look at the shadows, the shadow here under your Bible is coming. Oh, sorry. Oh, where are we? Yeah. So it looks like, and if I look at the shadow on the string of the crucifix, it looks like the light is coming straight down. I think there's the possibility here whereby if you've maybe gone for a little bit of side light, sort of a slightly lower light coming in from the side, you could have created some interesting shadow effects. And if you'd had the shadow of the crucifix just sort of creeping across the page, that could have created some interesting visuals as well. But again, certainly that notion of let's photograph a book. If you've got a religious book of some kind, and then you've enhanced that notion of the religious side of it by making sure you've got the crucifix on the other side. So yeah, that's another kind of good way of approaching to photograph a book. So thanks for sending that one in. Great. Okay. And John from Ohio says he's jumping in a bit late today, getting colder. Viji says lovely pic. April loves it. Says love it, Sandra. Where are we? Okay. Viji says interesting set of words. I remember when I was young, I used to look for messages in random papers. One of the reasons Bach's Illusions is my favourite book. Oh, that's Richard Bach, Illusions of a Reluctant Messiah, was it? I can't remember the subtitle, but yeah, I know the book you mean, Viji. And that's that notion that you can, that idea that you could open any book at random and you can pick up something which might feel relevant to you because your brain is always working on something and we look for connections. So that's an interesting one. It certainly is one of these things I know people use religious books a lot for as well. For whichever particular religion you're in, you can use it with the Quran, you can use it with the Bible, like even the Bhagavad Gita. I've heard someone talking about open. But if you're not religious, you can use it with almost any text as well. Open a book at random, read a passage, and then feel how does that relate to me and whatever struggles I'm going through at the time. And surprisingly, how often you actually find something which feels relevant. It's moving off on a slight tangent, but yeah, no, interesting point, Viji. And where are we? Sandra says it was natural light from the window. Right, okay. And where Rosemary says, oh yes, some warm golden sidelight would add to an already interesting photo. Oh, Nicola's here. Nicola says, evening all, sorry I'm late. Nice to be able to join in for a change. Yeah, glad you could make it along, Nicola. April said, yes, that would have also been cool with shadows. And then there's a few people saying evening to each other. Excellent, okay. Right, let's move on then to the... All right, now Sandra's just said, if I get a chance, I might have another go with a side light to see what impact it has. Yes, Sandra, please do. I think it's one of these things I talk about a lot. Sometimes I go a few weeks without really talking about it much, but if consistently, there's that notion of lighting. Lighting dramatically changes the impact of a picture. Side lighting is always more interesting than direct lighting. So if you have the opportunity, play around with where you're positioning the light in relation to the object and the camera and the view. You know, if you're using a window, what happens if the light is coming from the side? What happens if the light is coming from behind or in front? Or, you know, there's that kind of thing. I'm toying with the idea. I think at some point, fairly soon, in the next month or two, I think I'm going to do a podcast specifically about lighting, and perhaps where you do two kinds of lighting in the same picture. But anyway, that's still playing around in my head at the moment. Something to investigate, maybe in the new year. Right, okay, let's move on to the next picture then. And the next one, yes, Gary. Now, Gary. Gary sent me this photo, first of all, which I was rather intrigued with. Now, the problem was it's 5 pictures in one collage, and that wasn't really what I was wanting a photo, because I think for our part for these challenges is that you want to take one photo and see what you can do with it. And really, I thought some of these ones here, these macro, these close-up, these detail ones were absolutely intriguing, abstract, semi-abstract. So I said, well, look, play around with the lighting a bit. Send me one, you know, and just pick one. Maybe try a bit of a side light. I'm really quite interested to see what you're going to come up with. And then Gary sent me this one to say, oh, I tried this, it didn't really work, and then sent me an entirely different photo and said, I'll put this one in. So, and his comment with this one, Gary says, here's my attached submission, the spectral hand. The hand image was made using a camera set to ISO 50 f11 1.3 second exposure. I put the camera on a 2-second timer, placed my hand on the book roughly halfway through. I quickly removed my hand from the frame, creating the half exposure for the pointing finger. It took about 20 attempts to get the clarity and transparency I was happy with. That's really common. I thought this choice of book and its ironic title was, so I hope this is okay. So yeah, changed it all completely, and yeah, I think all the photo tricks and the fact you're using a photo trick, fun thing to do, Gary. I see what you're doing, I see how you've done it, and that's fun. I applaud the going for it. I have to say, I don't think whether that's the background texture is doing much for it. This kind of carpet type thing isn't. It's kind of a bit noisy, drawing your attention away. If you're going to do this might have been better either on a plainer background perhaps, or something which had more of a feeling of, I don't know, like a blanket or something aged, I don't know, a quilt or crocheted something like that. I'm not sure, but I think other backgrounds could have been interesting. However, what I really want to say to you, Gary, is I really wish you'd sent me one of these. Any one of these, I think. You know, this one here, I think I love the diagonals in that. I think I would even this one here on the right with, you know, that close-up macro, this one with the curves. I mean, that's beautiful. I love these curves. Even this one here with just the not quite lined up, the little gaps between the pages. I love these, Gary. I would have given you extra smug points for this. Is what I meant when I said take one of these photos. I think you don't have to work, because I think at the time you said something about keep doing this. Feeling that the problem was that these felt they didn't make a lot of sense, so you ended up having to put in a photo of the book open in order to give it context. And no, you don't. I think when we look at any of these, we can see the texture. We know that they're pages. We know that they're pages of a book. And I love the texture in these. I love the fact that, even because this is an old book, it's darker right on the edges. This is the bit where thumbs over the decades have been turning the pages and leaving little, making it slowly grubbier on the edge of the book. I love all the texture here, Gary. I really wish you'd sent one of these in instead. I think so. You're really onto something, and I think go away and play with this a little bit more, because I think these are really, really interesting, fun photos. So anyway, there you go, Gary. I think play with the texture of the book. I was surprised more people didn't really get in close and play with these textures. I think there's so much to be had from just the physical macro textures of books, and really get in. And it's the very first thing that I said about Robert's book was you could see that there could be texture, but because it was too noisy, when you got in close, it wasn't there. The quality of the photo wasn't there, and I wanted to see that. I wanted to sort of be able to run my thumb along the edge of the paper, the compressed paper, to feel all the little ridges. You want to be able to kind of smell the mustiness of it. It's a very, very tactile, physical, sensual kind of thing as a book. And I think when you get in close, there's plenty of opportunity to really do that. And I was kind of surprised there wasn't a little bit more of that this time. So, okay. What have we got in terms with comments? There's various things sort of leaping out of it. Viji says, actually it works, Gary. Love the curve of the pages. Wish to see it again. Inga says, cool experiment, Gary. Sandra says, really good idea, Gary. Max says, another good image, Gary. Clever. Inga says she loves the macros. Rosemary says, the curves are really great because it's not the way we typically look at a book. So cool. Pat says the pages are quite fascinating. And Viji says, the more the page ages, the more fascinating. Mac also says he loves the close-ups. I never thought of doing that myself. Good job, Gary. Okay, cool. Right, let's move on to the next one. Now, the next one is from Debbie, which very simply says, photo challenge book. So, no real story for this one. However, the story is fairly straightforward. So, we've got the marriage certificates about to be signed. Got the hands with the wedding rings. So a classic wedding photography photo. I like here you can see, because the light is coming from the side, coming from the right, we're getting much more in the way of the texture, the shadow of the hands, which works. Black and white, timeless. Nice diagonals coming in with the kind of creating a V shape with the hands, the fingers interlinking. It's a good, solid kind of wedding shot, and I think one to be pleased with. So yeah, good use of the idea of a book, the marriage book, and instantly we can kind of see what it's about. So you get that story straight away. So nice one there, Debbie. Right. Oh, Viji says romantic story. Yes. Okay, on to the next one then. Let me just do that and do that. Right, so next up then, yes. Oh, yeah, no, actually, what I was going to talk about first of all was essentially one of the things that I noticed were there were sort of four main themes that came out. I was going to talk about this at the beginning. And so the way I've actually structured tonight's podcast is based around the idea that what I noticed was there was essentially sort of four themes of ways that people had photographed books. The first is where people had just literally photographed a book. So like Robert's book, or like Gary's ones that, where you've got close up and you're doing the pages and you've got a detail of the book. The second kind of photo that is people interacting with a book. So here where you have Gary's hand coming down, the spectral hand, or you've got these hands sitting on top of the wedding register. book, registrar's book. And the next one I'm about to show you as well. So we've then got a sort of our second section is people and books. Third section is where people went for a more of a kind of still life setup, and by that they added in extra elements, but essentially created a still life using a book as the central thing to it. And then the fourth one was where they were creating a bigger story, and the book was almost like was just a prop within the story. And so that will be the last section I'll be talking to. But at the moment, it's just so we're in the second bit, which is people interacting with the book. And for that, then we come to Sophie. So yes, Sophie. Sophie put in this one and says, "Hi Kim, this is my submission for books. Came across this randomly on an autumn. Oh no, sorry, hold a sec. That's Sarah. Where? Sorry, Debbie. No, Debbie. Sophie. Sorry, Sophie. Getting mixed up with my bits here." Okay, Sophie says, "Hi Kim, this is for the book challenge. I captured this scene on a nice early spring day at the beach June. It's a candid shot, and I love how the entire woman's attention was caught by the book, and also the dog as her guardian." And yeah, oddly enough, again, I think I was quite surprised by this is the only photo submitted where someone's actually reading the book. I really thought I would get a few more people actually with the book open looking at them, but doesn't matter. We've got 20 submissions. Everybody's got their own different interpretation, and that's part of the fun. So yeah, when you're looking at somebody engaged in reading a book, you can kind of lose yourself in it as well. And here we've got the dog as taking over as the main subject, being the one who's actually looking at the camera. I think compositionally, I do have to say, Sophie, I get a kind of, I think it's partly because the angle of the car behind her, and the fact that you've got the legs disappearing out to the left of the photo, it almost feels like she's sort of sliding out of the photo. And although she captures the attention because we're looking at a face and what have you, it's actually the dog that occupies almost the best space in that photo. It's almost ideally, I think, what would have been ideal would be if you'd got the whole woman sort of shifted up to the right, or you'd moved down to the left, so you've got the whole length of the woman in the photo. And then in an ideal situation, if the dog had then been placed in front of her legs, so if you'd had her head to the right in that kind of rule of thirds bit just under the corner of my image here, body heading down, and then the dog where it is, but then, sort of on the opposite side, shifted over to the left, roughly, so its head is roughly where her book is now. I think that would have created a much, much more powerful composition. Great that you spotted something, you go for it, you take the photo, but if you're thinking about really trying to shift your photography to the next level up, then that composition of how the elements interact with each other and where they sit within the photo, I think is something to kind of keep in mind. But well spotted, and thanks for sending that one in. Right, okay. Where are we at? Sandra said, lovely wedding story. Max said, classic timeless image. Nice one, Debbie. Roy, black and white works well here. So, okay, talking about Debbie's photo, and then... April says, wasn't there one reading a book on the couch? Who was that? He wasn't reading it. We'll come on to that. That's Ben's photo, I think. I'll be coming on to that one. No, there was another one. Yeah, you're right. Actually, I think the next one, in fact, Ed's photo. Okay, talk about that one in a minute. Inga says, nice situation capture. Sandra says, lovely candid photo. Max says, April Ayres, I think it made me laugh when I first saw it. Okay. And Inga says, interesting what you say about the elements of the composition. Right, okay. So let's move on. And we are actually on to a different photo, which is now from Ed. Now, Ed doesn't usually watch the podcasts, but he did sort of join the group way back when I started this, and so things appear in his feed, and he kind of sort of loosely every now and again follows bits and pieces that are kind of going on. So he put in an image. In fact, he put in two, and I must admit, this is the second one he put in, which I kind of prefer. So I put this one in. I did say, because when he put the photo in, I said, oh, I didn't realise you watched. He said, no, I haven't been watching, but I have been seeing the pics and slightly following. So I couldn't resist putting this one in. And this one really did make me laugh. So we've got the wee boy reading Noam Chomsky. Hegemony or survival. America's quest for global domination. I think his other one was slightly better composed, but this one actually had more content. I think the fact that you can see the soother, the dummy in the mouth, just actually really added to it. And I like there's more of the body, and there's this sort of intense, like, you know, yes, this kid is absolutely, and it obviously got to the end of the book, reading the end credits there on the dust cover, having worked his way through Naom Chomsky. So I thought that was a lot of fun, Ed. So yeah. If you do tune in or you ever happen to watch this one back, I think smug points for you for that one. Right. Oh yeah. April says very cute. Inga's saying haha great. So on to the next one, and this is the one that I thought that you were referring to, April, which is Ben's one on the couch. And I have to say, I think this is great. I love this one. So Ben goes on to say, where are we? Here's my contribution to the book challenge. By coincidence, in real life, I've just started reading the book in the picture, which, if we look in, is actually called The Conscious Mind. And there he's lying unconscious with the conscious mind. He's saying, you have to make up your own story about my conscious state. Am I sleeping, exhausted by a rather taxing read, or simply pausing to ponder? Doesn't look like pausing to ponder. I wanted to suggest the coziness and calmness of a nice read, hence the subdued light and many horizontals and verticals. And I am smug points for you there, Ben, because you're the first person who's pretty much come back to me with a full understanding of when I'm talking about horizontals and verticals. I'll just finish off here where he says, the book and my head stand out as the only diagonals, also rule of thirds. I could have done with a larger light source, shadows are harsh, and I didn't know how to edit out the reflections in the books and bookcase. But what I love here, Ben, is that I feel like some of what I've been blabbing on about for the last year and a half has actually got through to somebody. What I'm always talking about with the notion of diagonals and horizontals and verticals anchor the space, and they're stable, and so they sort of stop any real sense of energy and movement. Diagonals tend to add energy and movement into a composition. And because whilst there is a nice little kind of diagonal line, just a little bit of curve here of Ben's body, the book and the arm and the shoulder nicely lead you up to the head here. The dominant lines in this are the horizontal and the verticals of the sofa and the bookcase and the fireplace. And because they are so dominant, they create that kind of stability. So that notion of falling asleep on that, I think, is really, so I love that. I love the fact that you've understood that and built that into the way you've created the photo. Also, your understanding of the fact that you could have done with a larger light source because the shadow's quite harsh. And here we can see, yeah, so another thing that I've often talked about is the fact that the smaller the light source, the harder the shadow. The larger the light source, the softer the shadow. So to get around this, I suppose ideally, maybe if you'd managed to take this during the day, if you had window light coming in, and it would have had quite a different feel to it, I think, if it I suppose it would have looked like you've fallen asleep in the afternoon rather than this has more of an evening feel because you've obviously got the lights on. The other bit was saying, not sure how to edit out the reflections in the bookcase. I think really it's not so much edit it out, it's more kind of darken it down. Because let's just open that with Photoshop for a moment. Yeah, because one of the, whilst this is great, we've got the white and the light of your face against the couch, that draws our attention in here. There is this sort of strong bright patch at the back here which is grabbing part of our attention. Now you could literally just pull that down a little bit, crop that, and then that's not grabbing the attention so much. We've still got it slightly light here. I think really it's a case of maybe playing around. What you do with something is like you sort of take the levels or the curves, maybe sort of, pull that down drag that down a little bit like that. We don't obviously don't want the whole thing that dark, so we'll just fill in that mask, and then take the paintbrush, turn it white, and then just sort of, I don't need that at 100%, darken down the background a little bit, something like that maybe. You could do something like that. So, you know, there's kind of ways to play around with it a little bit, and then that ends up drawing the attention a little bit more to you on the couch rather than to, and now we've got that. If we wanted, we can make that even darker. But you can kind of play around a little bit with that. But like I say, the other option here really is do it during the day. You know, I mean, I don't know where the window is in relation to you, whether the window would be coming from the viewer's point or whether it would be coming from your left or your right. I think in that kind of situation, it would be more ideal if the window light was coming from the left or the right rather than from the same angle as the viewer, because then that would create interesting light and shadows in its own place. Okay, so thank you for sending that one in, Ben. Lots of smug points for you for that, I think. Cool. Okay. Let's flip back. I also seem to remember in the comments actually Ben saying that he went and checked through and there was about 30 odd attempts at trying to do this. Setting the timer, running off, coming back. So I can't remember whoever it was who said earlier about doing 20 odd attempts to try and get the photo that they wanted. You know, you can see it's common. You know, we very rarely ever get the photo we want first time. Right, okay, where are we? Viji says, lighting is perfect, love it, Ben. April likes the photo. It says, he was reading the book. Yes, was reading, not is reading. Viji says, but who took the photo? Yeah, time, as April says, timed camera. Yeah, you set the timer for 10 seconds, run around to leap on the sofa, pretend you're sleeping, and there you go. So Nurije was also wondering the same thing. Yeah, Rory loves the irony between the pose and the book title, the fact that he's unconscious while holding the conscious mind. Sandra says, good photo, Ben. Inga says, thinking about the harsh shadows here, kind of like it. Daylight would have done something with the story, made it more staged, perhaps, maybe. I don't think it would necessarily have made it more staged. I think it would have just, because like I say, at that point you could be having the afternoon nap. Certainly, I think plenty of people, myself included, if I sort of sat down in the middle of the afternoon to try and read a book, I would be asleep within minutes. John says, very good photo with lots of options. Right, okay. So next on, we're on to Erich. And Erich says, not much of a photo, but the book, printed in French, was published in 1775. Now, at this point, we're now moving on to the sort of still life-ish kind of things. Now, I think Pat left a comment saying it didn't really look sharp enough, to which he responded, well, it's a styrofoam head and I had to soften it, otherwise it was too distracting. And he actually put a sort of behind the scene, the photo of what he'd taken it for. And here we see, yep, got a styrofoam head next to the old French book. That was the setup which he created. Now, a couple of things going on here. First of all, I think Pat was right with this, Erich. I think the book is way too soft. If we go back to the very first one that I was talking about Robert's one, about the fact that we want to see more detail. What you're talking about here is a book that was published in 1775. My goodness, this is 250 years old, this book. And look at the edges and everything about this book is about texture, except for the fact that that texture has been so smoothed out, we've lost it. It's all blurred. And that's a real shame. As a book like this, you saw earlier how I got excited about Gary's close-ups with the pages, and I think this is exactly that kind of stuff. A book like this, you want to get in close, you want the macro shots, you want the shadows, you want the texture, you want to be able to smell and feel this book. You want to all the ridges, all the of the cover and the scratches. You want to be able to, the detailing of this is super important. And if you really needed to blur the head, then you need to selectively blur. Just blur the head, but leave the book. The other thing is the head itself. I'm not totally sure of the relationship between the head and the book. Now, it might have been clear for you when you took the photo. I'm less clear about it when I'm looking at it as to what. And part of the, but I would say more problematic we have here is actually it's the head that captures all the attention, because the head is bright white against a solidly, almost solidly black background. That's where we look. The first thing we see is we see the face, and we see a blurred face. And then we're going, well, okay, I'm seeing a blurred face half hanging out. What else is there? Oh, there's a book. But you haven't said with this photo that this photo, you haven't given me a title, you haven't said this photo is about the relationship between the head and the face, and this is why the relationship is there, and this is the story I was investigating, and this is the narrative, or anything like that. You said not much of a photo, but the book was published in 1775. You don't even mention the face. So to me, when you talk about that, the book is the bit that's of interest, and the book then is distracted by the head. The head is grabbing all the attention. I'm not totally sure of the narrative, and you sacrifice the book. You sacrifice the sharpness, the texture, which is really what we want. So and also you put it in black and white, but to be honest, again, look at the colours in that, and I think again so. Now, it's quite a noisy photo, this, so I'm kind of figuring that you're maybe struggling with light. Looks like there's maybe a bit of natural. The orange glow here, I'm assuming, is like an overhead light, and the white light coming in, I'm presuming, is a window light. So really what you needed to do was get this right up against the window, have your little black back cloth sitting on the windowsill, and then have the light coming in from the side and zoom in, and then adjust the angle of the book so that it's picking up all the detail of these scratches and the tears in the binding and the texture of the paper. And there, I think you could create some beautiful photos. So I would really suggest that, Erich. Go back, get that book, get it right into the window so you can get as much light as possible so you can get the best quality photo you can. If necessary, put your camera on a slower shutter speed so that you can have a low ISO. You really want to have an ISO of only about 100, no more than 200, so that you can get in and get the detail without having to then blur everything. So, hope that helps, Erich. Hope that gives you some thoughts and ideas. Right. Okay. Where are we now? And come back here. So, April says that's a contemporary look with an antique look combo. April says I can see it on a magazine in the art section. Max says I don't understand the connection between the head or book, or am I missing something? Viji says I wish the book was in focus. Also would like to see the book open. 200 plus years old. You're so lucky. The mannequin, however much you have softened, we can see the face only. Well, April, you've got a cheerleader with April here, Erich, as he said. It could be called Worlds Collide. Max says, Max agreeing with Viji. Sandra says, I'd like to see more detail in the books, particularly given its age, and a couple more people are agreeing to that. And Nurije seems to be agreeing with that one as well. Okay, cool, right, let's move on then. Next up we have Nicola. So Nicola says, hi, this is my take on the book challenge. And what we have here is, so Nicola goes on to say, I chose this book as it's the oldest one we have, about 150 years old. So this is great. Some people are getting some really lovely old books in. And what is this 150-year-old book? It's Moore's Poetical Works. Lovely embossed covering by the look of it. Sense of age. Got some of the texture in there. And then you've placed it into some old stone, autumn leaves, and some creature weirdly at the back there. So let's move on with what you said. I just love the embossed cover and the finish of it. I thought it might be fitting to photograph it in a local historic tower near us. The shot was lit by a handheld torch, I had an assistant, which created some very unexpected strange appearances amongst the shadows. I'll post the original. Because of this, my imagination got carried away a little. So that's Nicola's original, and this is her edited version. And we can see with the original that there's obviously the light is catching the stone in the background, but there's some kind of little bursts of light there. So when she created this, she's copied it to create a pair of eyes. So it now looks like some kind of spooky little creature sitting at the back. So fun idea there, Nicola. I think you again, nice use of sort of diagonally having the book onto the picture, onto the view, creates that little bit more energy. The old leaves, the old book, the old texture. I think the only problem that you've really got here is that the torch is too harsh. And so what's happening is we are getting burnt out spots. We've lost texture in the rock. We've lost texture in the leaves. We've lost some of the and the other thing is, again, I don't know what your settings were on this, but I think I want to see more texture and detail in this. And in a way, I mean, although I can see that you've got in here, and yeah, the little kind of spooky creature in the background is quite fun. I almost feel like you could really sort of bring the photo in something like this. You kind of, if you got in, you know, and then, but have darker, more texture into the rock, but to have something whereby you've got the book and the leaves and the rock. I can see what you're going for. You know, all these old textures together and different kinds. You know, a rock, of course, is an ancient texture, millions of years old. The book, centuries old. The leaves, maybe only weeks old, or days old, possibly, if that, you know. But it's all about that notion of aging and texture, and it's fantastic. I love that combination. I think there are better ways of doing it. I think the harsh torchlight hasn't done the favours. But I think you're onto a really nice idea there, Nicola, and I think it would be worth going back and playing with it. It is a lovely old book, but again, you need more light. You need a low ISO, and because I really want to feel the texture. I want to smell the book. I want to just be able to run my thumb along the pages and, you know, feel each page as I run my, you know, along the edge of it. Can you bring that out? How would you bring that out? You bring that out by a combination of how close you are, where the light is falling, where the shadows are falling. And then if you want to combine it with these dying leaves and a bit of rough stone with lichens and stuff on it, then I think you can. I think there's other ways of doing it than this, but I love where you're going with this, Nicola, and think it's worth going back, revisit this idea, and see what you can create with it. So thank you for sending that one in. Right, okay. So. Mac says, great work, Nicola, loves the colours. Viji says, the nook is perfect for the book, a bit spooky though, looks haunted. I think that was probably part of the idea. April says, I like it cropped, the book is neat looking. Viji says, can you lend me the book? Timeless. Nicola says, I think I got carried away with a bit overcooked to the shot. Every day is a school day. Thanks for the comments. Okay, I'm glad you found that useful. Inga says, the creature is disturbing for me, likes the tighter crop. And April agrees with Inga on that one. Okay, next up then we have Roy's picture of was it Bell, Book and Candle. So here then we have Bell, Book and Candle. This image is a communication about excommunication. I see what you did there. The pentagram is a symbol of faith in the position shown, which is here. I did think about inverting it as that, then it would become the insignia of the Church of Satan, which also fits in with the excommunication theme. Lit only by the candle, the exposure was 30 seconds, 100 ISO, f8 is my entry for the book challenge. Okay, so here now again, we're definitely carrying on with this kind of still life theme, and I think with this, what we've got here. I think there's a slight problem here. Now, I don't know whether it's just because it's a low resolution photo, but it feels like there's a slight problem with focus here. It doesn't feel like maybe I mean, you've got it at 30 seconds. Slightest wobble of the tripod on this and it's not going to be particularly sharp, so I think that creates a slight problem. There's also another thing here, which is the candle and the handle. Are you going to add an angle? And I just kind of feel like I want to straighten them up a bit. Now I can also see from the horizontals on the tiles behind in the background that if we did straighten them, the tiles would then become slightly. So I think there's a little bit here where you kind of need to move your angle around a bit. I think maybe slightly lower angle could be interesting, or maybe even a slightly higher angle. Maybe looking straight down could be interesting. Although of course you've then got to be careful about setting fire to yourself with the candle. I do quite like. I like the circularity of the table, and it's got one of these black grooves in that, which actually kind of create the circle, and everything is in and overlapping that circle. So that kind of creates a line around it. So again, I think you're onto something. I think there's a nice idea here, Roy. I think that technically you need to make sure it really is, you're keeping it sharp, and maybe playing around with the angles a little bit. But yeah, fun idea. So thanks for sending that one in. Right. Oh, Max said, Nicola, I always get carried away, but I do love your thinking about it. Right, okay. Viji, I think she's talking about your book, Roy, is saying it looks a bit blurred. The theme is good, is a spiritual message, Roy. I think there's the idea with communication about excommunication. Oh, right, okay, that's going to be a long tangent. We'll not go shooting off on that tangent. BGB here half the night on that one. Okay, so we can maybe chat about it later, or you can start doing some Googling. Max said, did you put the camera on a time delay before taking the shot? Well, yeah, I think that's another good point actually, Mac, there for Roy, which is sometimes if you've got something on a slow shutter speed, the very act of pressing the shutter is can actually cause the thing to wobble a fraction, and that can make things blurry. So if I'm going to be doing something at 30, if I don't have a remote release, what I will often do is I will set the camera on a 2-second timer, so when I go click, it's got 2 seconds to stop wobbling, and then the camera clicks itself, and you don't run that risk of the camera wobbling, so you've got much more chance of it being and staying sharp. So yeah, thanks for reminding me of that, Mac. Okay, let's move on then. So next picture is Nurije, and Nurije says, hi Kim, took this photo for the book challenge. Took a few different photos with different ideas, and in the end decided to submit this one. I love the plants, I quite enjoy gardening, I've got green fingers as they say, plus I love the autumn colours of leaves, which of course I had to include. So yeah, this then is full-on still life. This is, so we've got is a collection of objects which are all related, laid out together. The leaves, the house plants, the glasses, the knife underneath, the cup of tea with the chocolate digestive biscuits. Oh, that set me off wanting a chocolate digestive biscuit. Lovely colours in the leaves. Now, it's a nice mix, a lovely idea, nice concept. I think with this, Nurije, what strikes me, what I feel, and this is going to be true of the next couple of images as well. So I'm going to talk, it's part of the thing with still life. One of the worries we have, or concerns we have, is it's still life. Now, some of you may, when was it we did still, I can't remember, it was either this time last year, I think it was maybe the beginning of this year, earlier this year, I did a whole thing on still life. And the thing about still life is it's not just about the objects that you've got, it's about how your eye moves through the objects that you've got. Now, so I'm going to go off on this slightly, because it's I'm then the next couple of photos I'm going to be talking about the same thing with this. Right, okay. Anybody remember this one this is the one that I did earlier this year, talking about a still life. And this one I created specifically for the podcast I did on still life. So if you missed it or you want a reminder, go back to YouTube, check into my channel on YouTube and scroll back through until you can find the bit on still life. And what we find here, but the thing is about it, is it's about creating a way to draw your eye through and also to draw your eye back into it. So, for example, I remember one of the things I was talking about is if you look over on the left here, the pear curves back inwards. It doesn't curve outwards. The curve of the lemon peel curves inwards. The way the tablecloth kind of curves up, we come to the grapes. The grapes drop us down. We can then loop onto the orange peel, swoop up. We're onto into the orange, and we've got the pomegranate. That's the word, pomegranate. Behind the pomegranate, we've got this jug, but we've also got this little knife down here. But the jug and the coffee pot in the background are both pointing back into the photo in the same way that the pear on the other side is pointing back into the photo. This loop at the bottom is curving us back. So essentially, all the various outer elements are drawing our eyes back into the centre. It's keeping us within the photo. We don't have anything shooting us off out of the photo. And then we have, because of the way the grapes come down and the orange peel, we've got kind of almost like figures of 8 happening. We've got things which are drawing our eye in and around and through the photo. So wherever we look, we've got little pointers taking us on to the next object. If we're looking at the coffee pot, we've got, the spout is drawing us over to the fruit bowl here. If we're looking at the apple here, we notice either lemon peel coming up, or we notice this bunch of grapes, which again kind of curves us around and brings us around towards the orange. If we're looking at this jug, it's pulling us back in. So most of the elements are in such a way that they're drawing us into and towards the other elements. So keep that in mind, because that's going to be true for the next 2 or 3 photos that I'm going to talk about. Now, if we come back to this one, I love what you've got here, but what I don't feel, Nurije, is that you've got that kind of how do we kind of contain it with a lot of these leaves hanging out of the picture. Now, I mean, if you take, for example, either this leaf at the top or these leaves at the bottom, they are pointing out of the picture. A thing as simple as turning those around so that they're actually pointing back into the picture means that when our eye wanders over to the edge of the picture, the leaf would appear to be pointing us back in. And so without thinking about it, we would kind of curve our eye back into the photo. By having them pointing out, our eye gets to the edge of the photo and we're kind of wondering what's outside the photo. And because we're wondering what's outside the photo, we're drawn away from the narrative. So the photo isn't holding our attention in the same way that it could be. Even though there are plenty of things to look at, we find we're kind of struggling. Our brain is wanting to pull our eyes in one direction rather than where we actually want them to go. Even your cup with the tea bag over here is leaning to the right and sort of pushing up, taking out, kind of pointing us out of the photo. And then in the middle of the photo, which is really where we want everything to be coming into, there isn't really anything to grab our attention. There's a knife here which again is pointing us off to one side, some glasses up here, but there's a big kind of gap on the material there. There's a bright patch. There's in fact actually almost the brightest patch of the picture. Oh, where have we gone? Move that. Yeah, there we go. The brightest patch of the picture is in fact this bit of cloth here, but that bit of cloth isn't really a key theme of the picture. So our eyes are not getting drawn to you. We've got another bright patch up the top here. So in essence, what we're talking about then, Nurije, is I love the idea. I really like the idea. I love the combination. I love the combination of the cup of tea and the chocolate digestives and the house plants and the leaves and the glasses, and you're going to be sitting down reading your book. It's a lovely idea. The thing with still life isn't just about the objects that are in it. It's how you arrange them so that you draw the eye in and around. A still life is an absolute it's all about honing your composition skills. And this is what I was talking about back when I did the Still Life podcast, is it's about composition, and it's a place to really hone and perfect and grow your composition skills. Because the great thing is with the Still Life is you can keep rearranging and rearrange again, remove this bit, put that bit in, turn the angle, chop it about, and keep doing it until you go, until it feels right, till it looks good, till your eye just gets drawn in and through and around, and then it becomes so much more satisfying. So I hope that helps, Nurije. Take the elements again, but play with them. Hope that gives you some ideas. But thanks for sending in it. Great ideas in that one. Okay. Where are we? Okay, Roy's saying Viji is a 16th century excommunication rite practiced by the Catholic Church. That's more succinctly put together than I could think of at the time, so thanks for that, Roy. Okay, a couple more. Yeah, Viji says she'll Google it. Vandana's arrived, saying sorry for joining late, work deadlines. Okay, Vandana, we've not got to yours just yet. Viji, so on to Nurije's photo. Viji says a colour riot, lovely sight. Sandra says a lovely still life, the biscuits look delicious. Mac loves the concept and the leaf on the cup. April says yes, I do remember. That's presumably talking about the still life thing. Nurije, message retracted. Some of you may have seen it. I will never know what she said. Okay, a couple more people saying they remember it, and Nurije saying, "Wish I'd remembered it when I actually took the photo." But that's part of the growing process, Nurije. Hopefully now I've reminded you, it gives you some ideas to go back and play with. Meg says the leaves are amazing because they're very colourful, and the cup of tea and the biscuits really add the nice touch to the photo. April loves the leaves also. Roy's also thinking the biscuits look tempting. Yes, I think you probably triggered something here, and everybody's going to be kind of running off and getting some extra snacks for the rest of the show. Okay, good. Nurije says it certainly does, Kim. Thanks for that. If I've got time, I should give it another try. I hope you do. I really hope you do. Okay, cool. Inga says, nice idea. Interesting advice. Excellent. So, next one then. Let's move over. We've got Jim. Now, I know Jim said he couldn't be here tonight, but he will be watching on the catch-up. Says, this is my effort at books. It's taken in my study. Apologies in advance, but these are the only types of books I ever look at. There's a photographer for you. Having said that, I think I've blown out the white page on the big book. Photos that change the world. Well worth a look. As always, critique welcome. Okay, so having gone through that long bit of talk about Nurije's photo, and if you've just leapt through to this bit and not read it, go back and listen to my last bit there, Jim. This is another case whereby we're talking about essentially the same problem. That on the one hand, you've got all the elements, and we have photo book, we've got more photo books, more photo books, more photo books, that the photographer's pocket book, a Nikon book, computer hanging out in the side there. We've got, can't quite make out what that little jar is there. Looks like bits of film potentially in there, lenses, CDs, cases, so, and a printer behind it. So we've got the full massive photography stuff. But what we don't have, we don't have a thing to lead our eye through. I think we're back into this problem of, and this book is absolutely dominant because of the big, strong, powerful white page. That's everything we get drawn to. But it's only supposed to, I get the feeling the way you've laid everything else out, this is only supposed to be part of the story, not a whole story. And as such, these books piled on top of the printer, it's got a kind of a look like, well, maybe this is how it always is and I've just taken a quick snap, or maybe you've kind of rearranged, you've put extra elements in there. But I think what we're talking about here is exactly what I was talking about the last one, which is what we're failing is to feel that we're there's nothing to allow our eye to draw through it. We get drawn straight away to either the big white page or the series of tanks, the picture within the picture, and then we have to kind of fight to go out and look at the rest of it. While all the time, if I'm trying to look up over in this corner over here, this really big powerful white patch is just grabbing my attention and dragging it all back. So same advice for you, Jim, that I gave to Nurije. I would say if you've got some interesting elements here, I would say really think about what you've got here is a still life, and a still life is all about your chance to practice your compositional techniques. Go back, play with them, and see what you can come up with. So, hope that helps. Meanwhile, I will just say at this point in proceedings, if you are finding these podcasts useful, educating, interesting, you feel you're learning something from them, you feel you're being entertained by them, you would like to support these podcasts, help me keep them going, then one way of doing that is buymeacoffee.com/Kim Ayres. Another way is invite your friends. Let's grow these podcasts. Okay, right, next photo then. Actually, no, we'll just double check. Yeah, a couple more comments first. Yeah, Nurije says, glad you all like the biscuits. Viji says, whenever Kim says cup of tea, I remember Professor Henry Higgins' My Fair Lady, like the way it's pronounced. See, that's just weird because you've got to remember, Viji, I don't have an accent. To me, I don't have an accent. To the rest of the world, I do. I have an English accent. To those in Britain, I have a Southern English accent. Probably slightly more generic. I don't know who would be able to pin down exactly, because I've moved around a lot. My dad was from Sussex, my mum was from Reading. I've spent my childhood in bits of Wales and Southern England, and I've lived in Scotland for 30 plus years. So, but it is a generally Southern English accent. So I'm not aware of the strangeness of it. I do remember when I spent a year in Canada when I was a student in Nova Scotia, and I remember there people seeming to think that I had a very strange accent because their main understanding of my accent was watching Monty Python TV shows. And I remember somebody saying, Kim, must be funny you coming over here where we don't have any accents. All I can say was, my dear chap, I appear to be the only person here who doesn't have an accent, because that's the thing. You get used to the way you sound yourself. So no. So my apology. I have no idea how it sounds when I say cup of tea. Okay. Right. So where are we? Vandana and Viji are now having a laugh amongst themselves. Cool. Right. Oh, Mac said, buy me a coffee. Done. Thank you very much, Mac. Much appreciated. April says, both still lifes pics were creative. Yes, they were creative. No, I hope I'm not sort of coming across as the idea of saying that they weren't being creative. What I'm talking about here, April, is the fact that with the still life, that what you've really got to, it's an excuse to, the way a still life really works is through understanding composition. Understand your rule of thirds, understand leading lines, understand the use of diagonals, understand that use of flow, of how you can move from one object to the next, how you can use light and shadow. Everything that you can learn about composition with photography, still life gives you a chance to kind of encapsulate that, and you can do it without the pressure of, well, like a landscape where the light might change, or wildlife where it might move, or a person who might just get bored and fed up. I think still life is a wonderful place to really hone your compositional skills, and it's not about the creativity. There's certainly creativity gone into those photos of getting a theme and running with that theme, and absolutely great ideas. But really, it's about understanding the composition, and that's the bit that I'm trying to hopefully inspire a few more thoughts about. April says, I love English, Irish, Scottish, and Australian accents. Max says, it is a true English gentleman's accent, Kim. No, I don't have the posh accent. I'm just general Southern English, generic, I think. Oh, John says, love Nova Scotia, would like to revisit. Yeah, Nova Scotia was beautiful. I really enjoyed my time there and hope to get back there at some point. Viji says, I love the way English is spoken in England. We have a strong accent, Kim, in India. I mean that as a compliment. Well, you have a strong Indian accent to me, but you won't to you. It's just been completely and utterly normal to you. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on to Vandana. Okay, and we'll don't have to talk about the accents anymore. So Vandana has been again busy playing with still life and says, my contribution for the book challenge, for the first time worked on the background and was aware of the light. Is a cookbook as seen from the picture. Please critique. I have to say, Vandana, I think it's brilliant that you've decided to really kind of create something. To me, this is a real step up from the, you've clearly got a very creative eye. And I love the way you've been watching, over the last few months and what have you. Your photography, your understanding of photography is growing. So to now move on to a point whereby you're constructing something, I think is brilliant. And what you've done is you've got you've got a cookery book, got some, is that incense sticks, I'm guessing, another cookery book underneath. Now, it looks like there's various bits of cloth around here. Now, part of it, whilst I also like the fact you're editing and you're just sort of darkening the background to bring attention to the main objects. I can't quite make out what is in the background. It feels this sort of almost darkened a little bit too much. We've got these bits of edging of material, these golden stripes, edges. Now, I'm not sure whether they are, depending on the material you've got, it could actually enhance the picture if we can see more of it, or if it's not, if it's actually kind of distracting you, we're trying to remove them, then in your editing software, if you can, then do try and remove them. I'm slightly less sure about this pink pen, I have to say. I'm guessing you're kind of using it to hold the book open, because it looks like that page will close on its own. The only problem is it kind of feels a bit out of place. We've got the lovely paper texture colours of the book. You've got a nice jar in the background with the wooden sticks coming out. But the pink plastic pen grabs the eye because it's pink, and whereas the others kind of have a slightly more natural colour to them. The pink kind of feels unnatural, so it grabs the eye. It's also acting almost like a leading line, pointing us out of the picture again. So I'd perhaps lose the pen, play around with a couple of other things. The other thing is it's a very small picture that's been sent in. I'm kind of curious. I think you kind of, if you're putting in a picture of this, you kind of want to be able to see a little bit more what it is. We need a kind of higher resolution version of this, and I can't quite make that out. Maybe if I have it smaller, I guess chicken and chicken and cheese pizzas. Okay, chicken and cheese pizzas. Give those a go. Is there a reason why you chose chicken and cheese pizzas? Would it have been interesting if you'd had a different one? And I think, again, here, part of the thing is to think about, if you're going to have a picture, which picture have you chosen and why have you chosen that? And can you make a little bit more of a story out of that? These are all just throwing these ideas out to you, Vandana, to have a think about how to expand and grow with what you're doing. But I love the fact that you are moving forward with what and how you're thinking about your photography as well. So, smug point. Yeah, have a smug point for that. We're not being handing out as many smug points tonight. Right. Okay. Where are we? April says yummy picture, and Viji says feeling hungry. Mac and Viji like the photo. Yes, Vandana says yes, the pen was there to hold it. So yeah, kind of think about something else. Viji says looks like a sari with a zari, the golden border. April says got to run for an appointment. Everyone, job well done. Have a good week. Hope you can come back and watch the rest of it later, April. Nurije says take care, April. Have a good one. A couple of people are saying goodbye. Meg put in a comment and has removed it, so never know. I'll never know what it was Meg said. Max says, I think you had a handwritten note. I think, had you a handwritten note, like a recipe, the pen would have fitted perfectly. I think that's a really good point, Mac, actually. And that's another option there, is to have like a little notepad or a handwritten thing, and then you've got the pen. Yes, that idea of scribbling down. That's a good point. And Rosemary was thinking the same thing. Oh, Meg's saying pizzas are amazing. Yes, well, who doesn't love a good pizza? Inga says, what about the link between the incense and the cooking book and the cooking books? That's a good point. What is the link there, Vandana? Okay, cool. Right, let's move on. Now, next we are Inga. We'll move on to you. So, Inga's picture is says, I tried a couple of ideas, but they came out quite boring and soulless. So this photo isn't brand new, but from an older attempt to capture books. The books should have been more focused, though. The old mirror is handmade by my husband's grandfather. Wow, okay, cool. So what we've got here, a handmade bull's head, I guess. And it looks like, judging by the fact that there's a switch here, a couple of bulbs here. So I'm guessing that when you flick the switch on, the lights light up as well. And then in the background, in the reflection of the mirror, we have the books and we have your hands and the camera. And in the foreground, we've got some tulips and their shadows. I quite like the shadows on the tulips. It does feel, though, that the tulips are kind of cut off a bit. I would say if you wanted to get the tulips in, then there's two things. Either you kind of remove the tulips, or if you're going to have the tulips in, I would say give the tulips a bit more space. Allow the tulips to kind of come up and grow into it, is a thought. So, fun, quite an amazing creation your husband's grandfather made. We can see the books in the reflection. I think really here the real problem is, Inga, that the books are almost the afterthought. I think this really is a photo about the mirror. There's no doubt that it's about the car, because it's the focus, as you say, the books are out of focus. It's the mirror that's in focus. It's the mirror that is got all the strong dominating lines, and then the shadow as well that's coming off the mirror. So everything is really about the mirror, and then the books are in the reflection, which is kind of almost an afterthought. It's not the primary part of this. So in a way, if this was the mirror challenge, I think extra points for that. As the book challenge, you kind of it feels like it's kind of getting shoehorned a bit into the theme of the challenge. And very, sometimes we talk. I can't remember. There was a couple of weeks ago, a couple of challenges ago. I think went off on a tangent for a bit. I can't remember who it was I was talking to, but that notion of sometimes that happens, and I'm terrible for this on PhotoCrowd. I tend to do this all the time. There's a competition and it says something, and I go, oh, that's loosely associated, so I put it in. It never does very well. Rarely lucky if I get as high as in the top 50%. Quite often I get quite low. So one of the first kind of rules of entering a challenge or a competition is to try and make sure that you are as on theme as you can be. And I tend to feel that with this, the primary narrative of this is the mirror, and the books are secondary in it, rather than it being the other way around. But yeah, fun creation, quite a strange one. I wonder what it looks like with the lights on as well. But yeah, probably do more with the tulips as well. I must admit, actually, I really a little bit of detail. I get caught up. I really like the shadow created by the light bulb there. I suppose that goes back to the shadows we were doing shadow challenge a few weeks back there. When you get the light passing through glass, always creates something interesting. But anyway, thanks for sending that one in, Inga. Right, okay, so, yeah, Inga was also asking what the link was between the incense and the cooking books. And Vandana says it was the sticks, pen, incense, and pen. Okay. Still not sure I completely understand. Okay, anyway, right, so Max says still a great picture. So the Sandra says, this is a great idea. I think we're talking about your picture now, Inga. Viji says, loving this. First thought it was a book stand, later saw that it was a mirror. Max says, this reminds me of a cow/bull in a meadow. I do like the image, reminds me of a field at the back of my garden. Oh, Inga says, thank you, you're quite right. Okay. Viji likes the tulip shadows too. Max says, I can still see the bull leaning over my fence eating my flowers. I like that interpretation. Cool. Right. Okay. So let's move on to the next art now. The next one comes from Stacy. So Stacy says, I created this for the challenge. I took some old books from my parents that were boxed, an old style candle holder that used to be used in their home, and the decorative clock. I opened the book and added the magnifier on the book. So this is book as still life, and actually, Stacy, I think it's a brilliant photo, with the exception of the fact that the mist cloud thing that you've done with it is overdone. It's just, I think it's obscuring too much. Whether, at this point, I think it feels like, something's burning in the kitchen, you need to go and put the fire out, or we leave the house, or something. I think it's kind of overkill. And I think, maybe a little bit of smoke, a little bit of dust might be interesting. But let's just open this in Photoshop for a moment. I'll just close that one of Ben's. And what do I need to do here? Let's try just dehaze. So if I go to filter, camera raw filter, and there's a dehaze slider here, and I just pull that over to the right, and that kind of gets rid of too much of the haziness. And then I think we have something kind of interesting. And it's kind of, I'll just bring the shadows up a touch, maybe play with the clarity a little, texture, bring the exposure up a little bit, something like that, so that we can now see it a little bit more clearly. And I think you're really onto something here, Stacy. I really like this. I mean, throw a smug point to you for this one. Maybe bring that candle in just a little bit closer. There's kind of a bit of a gap. Given the fact that the clock and the books are kind of right up against the book, I think you could bring that candle a little bit closer as well. I think the magnifying glass is really nice. There's the fact that the book's sitting at a slight diagonal, the other things around it are pulling in. The reds, the really rich texture, the colours are really nice complementary. The blue of the magnifying glass there as well actually counteracts against the red quite nicely. So you kind of got this red and gold theme, or red and brown theme going, but the blue kind of cuts through it quite nicely. So there's a nice colour scheme in this. There's interesting, and I think also what I like about this is the almost that kind of, again, a still life thing of a theme, the memento mori, the idea that there are things which remind us of the briefness of existence. Candles being one of those because they burn down. The old book, the aging book, the clock, the fact that you've got a clock and the time ticks past. These are some of the themes that would often crop up in some of the old still life images, and given the recent loss of your parents, it kind of adds like an extra level of poignancy to that as well. So certainly smug points all around for this one, Stacy. I think it's a lovely piece, but if you've got the original before you've edited in, I don't fully understand the mist side of it. I think that's kind of just obscure. There might have been an idea behind it, a little bit of smoke coming in, adding to it, but it's kind of overkill. So you can see here that if we can kind of if we can remove that, I think it sort of dramatically improves it. So thanks for sending that one in, Stacy. Right, now where am I? Click that, and so couple of comments here. Nurije says, love the candle holder. Max says, this is beautiful, Stacy, just love the concept. Vandana says, beautiful, Stacy. Inga says, here I find the elements linking to each other's. Sandra loves the photo. Rosemary says, this does accomplish the goal of drawing the eye in and holding it there. Beautiful relationship between the objects, they work so well together. Nurije says, the editing that does make it look so much better. Viji says, nicely framed but not clear. The magnifying glass and candles stand out as great subjects to photograph, and the clock too. Roy says, less haze is better. Rosemary says, very pretty, Stacy. I like your still life. And Stacy goes, yay, got a smoke point. I was experimenting with texture. Yeah, okay, cool. Right, so next then, we'll move on. So, having talked, having talked through so far, we had the different styles of photos we've had. We've had the book photos of just the books on their own. We've had photos of people interacting with books, and we've had books as part of still life. And what we're now doing on is sort of removing. Well, actually, this next one's a kind of transition. Well, it's not really still life. We are moving on to now. It's the book as a prop to another story. So it's less about the book and it's more about the using the book as a prop within something else that's happening. It's still related to the idea of the book though. And we're moving on to Mac. And what I would say is stick your sunglasses on. Don't say I didn't warn you. So this is Mac. This is Mac getting really colourful. Now, earlier on in the week, Mac had posted a picture of this. And talked about the elements that he was playing around with, and I said, oh, that kind of looks a bit interesting. I wonder what you're going to do with that. So what he's done is he's put all these against a blue background, so essentially he can, in Photoshop or whichever editing program he's using, cut them out more easily so that he can then place them back in together. And Mac has then, so let's click back here, so then Mac has taken all these elements and hyped them up, and it looks like a kind of children's illustration, really, which is tying in with the book. I can't know, totally sure. Is that Cinderella going off to the ball in the who knows, or maybe I can't see what the book is. And again, just to go back to that little bit, Mac, that if you're going to have the book in, and if it's related to the story you've created around it, it'd be quite nice to be able to read some of the words and have a sense of which story it actually was. So you've taken all these elements and you've created it around. I have to say, my one big concern with this Mac is actually the background itself, which is the whole thing that it's hanging on. The 2/3, 3/4 of this picture is this forest. And I'm assuming you didn't take a photo of that forest. That's not one of your photos that you've then created an illustration out of. This is the photo, the background forest looks like an illustration in itself. Whether it's from this book or not, I don't know. Maybe if it had been from this book, I think that could have made it a little bit more interesting. If you'd had the actual picture in the book, and then you've made that picture come to life out of the book, I think you're maybe then onto something. Otherwise, what's happened is you've taken a photo of an illustration. Now, first of all, copyright issues, not totally sure on that one, bit of a grey area. But it's that thing that I always tend to feel, nothing wrong with composites, but I think every element of the composite kind of needs to be yours. It's slightly different than the book itself. You're photographing the book, but the background is not clear that it's a book. We're not seeing the edge of the book pages or anything like that. What we're seeing is an image of or an illustration of the forest. And the fact that there's a little man standing behind the lamp over here, looks like there's little steps going up here, and the way this is all wiggling down makes me feel that is presumably a story from, you've taken it out of a storybook. If you were going to create this yourself, I think, it's like you need to have a really good, if you've got a great forest photo of your own and then edit these in, then that's the kind of way you need to do it. Or, as I said, what you do is you actually make sure that if you've taken this from another book, that is actually that's the book you've got in the foreground. Does that make sense? So that we can see the picture within it, and then what you've done is you've kind of expanded it out, so we know that the background picture has come from that book. So that's the thoughts on that. Bright, colourful. generally speaking, with composites, there's two different ways of going about them. You can either try and merge them and blend them so that they look like they are integrated and you wouldn't know they were edited. The other is collage, which is more what this is, where you can clearly see that they've all kind of been put in together, but it's building them together to kind of create something. So thanks for sending that one in, Mac. Right, okay, so Nurije says, I fell in love with this one. Viji says, wow, Mac, dreamy. Sandra loves all the fairy image. Vandana likes it. Okay, Mac saying, I did actually mess this up. Right, Viji saying Cinderella. Yes, Mac agrees it's Cinderella. Mac says, no, it was a free download. Right, okay. So, with that, yeah, and it is. I kind of feel, Mac, I know it might be a free download, yes, and that's fine, and that's okay for playing. But I'm a photographer, and I kind of feel, and photography is one of your key pursuits here, Mac. And I think if you're going to pursue photography. And if you're going to create composites, that's fine, that's great. But make sure every element of the composite is yours. I think there's something so much more deeply satisfying knowing that you took all the different elements and then you've combined them, rather than taking somebody else's image. Do you remember the mermaids that I did a little while ago, a couple of months back? I showed you the photo shoot, and I've got them under the sea. And it would have been so much easier to just take a photo, download an undersea photo, and then paste the mermaid in. I couldn't do it. I had to construct every part of that. The sand underneath was from a beach where I'd taken a photo. I used the gradient tool to create the different shades of blue. I learned from I was on YouTube so much that week learning how to create bubbles, how to create light streaks through the water. A lot more work, but ultimately so much more satisfying. So I think with that, Mac, it really is a case of, I think if you're going to do it, use the illustration from the book, because that's fine, because we know you've taken the photo of the book already, or use one of your own elements. One of your own pictures for the background. Modify it all you like, play with it, yes, but I think it's going to be much more rewarding than just grabbing a royalty-free photo, grabbing something off the internet, or something else. So, hope that makes sense. Rosemary's impressed with your Photoshop skills, Mac. Okay, and right, so on to then the next one. The next one is Rosemary's. So where are we now? We've got a couple of different stages of this one. So this is Rosemary's final image that she sent me. It says, I was so excited for the book challenge. Immediately after you announced it, my head went to a drawing from a children's book, The Mysteries of Harris Burdick by Chris Van Allsburg. The particular drawing I had in mind is entitled Mr. Linden's Library, whose caption reads, he had warned her about the book, now it was too late. I'd love to share the drawing, but realised copyright protection prohibits this. In a nutshell, it shows a young lady having fallen asleep behind an open book, which is emanating a mysterious glow and creeping vines coming to life. It is this drawing, then, that inspired me to create a composite image with a similar theme of the story, with a book spilling out with life. It's not an unusual theme, but it seemed like a good challenge to fit the book photo brief. Executing my vision ended up being much harder and way more time consuming than I thought. Having my daughter pose as a model similar to the girl in the picture didn't work, and I had to scrap that idea. Then I tried setting up a studio style shot using the storybooks from a set that had been my grandmother's. So another set of books that have got age and depth and story to them. The fairy is a doll with a sporty acorn cap, is made by a friend. The blackberry vines, or brambles, or briars, as they would be known in Scotland, here are ratty and stiff. This is definitely the wrong time of year to be clipping them. In addition to an LED light with an orange glow behind, there's a flash umbrella to the right to show the book titles. So, in fact, actually, I think we have that. Here's a picture Rosemary sent the setup, so you can see here we've got the little doll with the baby sitting on the with the acorn cap sitting on the books. There's an LED light behind, and here's a flash to sort of light everything up. The post-processing overlaid some sparkle of faint bouquet of dewdrops on the long grass. So basically, this is the original photo, and then she overlaid in the background to that some bouquet shots from when she took some photos of some dewy grass, and that I think is really quite nice. It sort of adds and lifts it a bit. She then played around with adding in some more streaks and kind of created this sort of big glow coming out from behind. I have to say, actually, for my taste, I think that feels, I know what you're going for, but it feels slightly overkill for me. There's a little bit with this where actually I find this one slightly softer and slightly more pleasing, but I fully get the fact that that's going to vary from person to person, taste to taste. But this was the one that you went for, and you've sort of, and I think again you clearly be having fun learning the techniques, overlaying the image. But all in all, I think, yeah, let's throw you some smug points there. Lots of work gone into it. Beautiful little doll here. You've got lots of texture within it. Got the beautiful texture, and here the texture of the book and the leaves and the binding and the pages really is coming out, and we can see the little kind of threadbare tatty bits on the end, and we can read the writing. So you're really getting that sense of the texture of the book, and I think having the flash off to one side, which is allowing the light to run along it rather nicely. So thank you for sending that one in, Rosemary. Lovely picture. Right, where are we? Max saying, actually, you're right, Kim. In my defence, this is the first time I've ever tried doing anything like that. Fair enough, Max. Sorry, I'm not trying to. It's a difficult one. I don't want to kind of come across like I'm having a go at you for this. I think the big thing here, Mac, is that you're going for it and you're trying and you're experimenting and you're playing, and that is brilliant, and I absolutely commend you for that. I really do. And feel good about that. Really feel good about that. What I'm trying to do is help steer you to the next level. Okay, steer you to the next level, which is make sure that all your images are your own. And I think downloading other photos to get to learn on is great. There's nothing wrong with doing that. But I think if you're going to put something out into the world as that wasn't put in for critique, that was put in as part of the challenge. So you're saying, hey, this is my work. Then if you're saying this is my work, you kind of need to make sure all the elements are your work. But for practicing on, then brilliant. Yeah, go for it. Okay, so on to Nurije says, such a lovely photo, Rosemary, great work. Sandra also says a lovely photo, as does Mac and Vandana and Viji. Viji also is glad to be able to see the setup. Inga says it's a nice one. And Viji says the close-up of the book and the fairy sitting is a perfect photo too. And there's a certain point with that, which is, I suppose if we flip back here, that too makes for an interesting photo, is that to actually come in close and get some detail where we can sort of see the book and we can get more out of the leaves as well. So yeah, fun. Right, okay, so now we're moving into our last couple of photos. So the next one is from Mandy, and close that, open that, and Mandy says, scroll down, try and find it. Right, another Little People still life photo for fun. This image was taken a while back, as at the moment I never get enough time to set up these kind of scenes. I think this is just really lovely, Mandy, and this is coming back into that notion of the book as a prop in another picture, in another story, using the book like a kind of tent, the little doll's house light coming in, lighting up the figure. Yeah, it's a beautiful idea. I love all the moss and the bush around as well. You really get this feeling kind of, and of course the little stick that's holding the book open. really gives a feel of, yeah, sort of like you're camping out in a tent. Compositionally, it feels like there's more gap on the right than the left. And I kind of feel you could have just centered this a little bit more. I mean, again, let's just show you briefly. If I use the, we go to the crop tool, and I'll make sure we do the content aware. So if we were sort of slightly more to the left, just like in there, something like that. And I think that maybe even just a fraction more. That to me does feel slightly more balanced. Your main photo is the middle, and you've got your line up within this. We've got the diagonals, we've got the girl, we've got the thing. So I think the outer edge of this is pretty much framing it. So I think having a sort of slightly more evenly framed with the external part works a little bit better than over here. It feels like we've got a lot of bit too much gap on the right and not quite enough. The book feels like it's just disappearing out the edge over on the left. But other than that, Mandy, smug points for certain. Fun image. Cool. Okay, where are we now? So Stacy says, I'm liking all the images, everyone's having clever ideas. Excellent, good. That was the hope, is that when we do these challenges, everybody's got a different take on it. And that's part of what I love about these challenges, is that, you know, you can come up with a theme like books, shadows, flowers, whatever it is, and then everybody comes at it from a different angle. And even if you've got two people photographing the same kind of thing, they will still photograph it in a different way. And hopefully then when we look at what different people are doing, it inspires us to go, oh, could I do something like that? What could be my version of that? Okay, Sandra says, another lovely photo. Wonderful, Mandy. For Rosemary says, very clever, like the book as a tent. Vandana says, it's so warm and imaginative. And Stacy says, I've been busy cooking for my dog myself. Big process. Right. Okay, that's not so much about the book. Viji says, very creative, Mandy. And Nicola says, love this, Mandy. Cool. Okay, right. On to the last photo, and then I'll tell you a little bit about what I'm going to do next week, so don't rush off too quickly. So, last photo then we're on to is Viji. And here we go. And I have to say, smug points galore, Viji. I love this. I absolutely adore this photo. I had to leave it as the one to finish on. It feels ever so creative, and I love, you know, this is you getting in play. You know, there's been various points across the last year and a half, Viji, where we've seen your model making in action. I know you like to get out and take photographs, and then lockdown and COVID and everything has kind of kept you indoors, unable to go out, but you've turned to your model making and quite often made little models to photograph, to try out different techniques. And this one where you've made this lovely little person in a paper boat, made out of a page, and then that page is on, it looks like they're riding the waves, you know, we've got the waves, the curve, and to make a book into the waves, and then on top of that, to really add to it, it's a map. It's a wonder. You've got a map, and it works on so many levels. Really, great composition as well. I like the fact we can see the edges of the book, and it gives us this curve of the wave. We've got all the diagonals. There isn't actually a horizontal in it, nor is there a vertical in it. Everything is on a diagonal because of the way that it's gone. So it really adds that sense of dynamism and movement. This, you know, arm out, woohoo, hey, we're surfing the waves. The book coming up, like you can always kind of hear it about to crash over you. But also the fact that you've put it on a map as well. That idea of travel, that idea of travelling and sailing is going out into the world, into the great unknown, and superb. Yeah, just superb on so many levels. I absolutely adore this photo, Viji. I think you've done a great job on it. So multiple smug points to you, and I think that's a really good photo to finish on. Theanne says she's enjoying the book-themed photos. Nurije says, I do love the little boat, Viji. Nicola says, wow, Viji, very clever and very well created on so many levels. Sandra also says, really clever. Vandana says, amazing, wow. Inga says, this is really great, Viji, creative and storytelling. Roy says, very creative, Viji. Great interpretation of tonight's theme, love it. And Rosemary says, this is wonderful. So much thought gone into every aspect, well done. So brilliant. Thank you to all of you who have put in entries. Thank you to everyone who has sat through this evening, and to everybody who's watching it on replay as well. So I think it's been a really fun, interesting evening. Looking through the images, to work on the book theme. If you found these educational, interesting, if you're enjoying these podcasts and you want to support these podcasts, make sure that they keep going for as long as we can, then buymeacoffee.com/Kim Ayres is one way to help. Next week, I'm going to talk about Odin's chair. And by that, what I'm talking about is I did a photo shoot recently for the Priest & Galloway Life magazine. There's furniture maker Ian Cameron Smith and his sons, another Ian and Connor, were helping him to create this giant 3x size chair, sort of from Viking mythology. So Odin, the king of the gods, the leader of the Norse gods. Inga will know much more about this than any of the rest of us. So basically, in Dumfries and Galloway, this corner of Scotland, a few years ago, 2013, 14 or something, they found the Viking hoard. They found this massive hoard of buried treasure and jewellery and stuff from the Viking era. And this has all been taken away, cleaned up. It's now mostly stored in Edinburgh, but nearby, down in Kirkcudbright, which is about 9 miles down the road from here, to the gallery that is now returned for a few months, and I'm hoping to get down there quite soon and go and see the Viking hoard in its own right. But commissioned to go along with this, Ian was commissioned to create this giant throne that Odin himself could have sat on, and it's basically done as a kind of way of kind of tourist attraction for people to go and do their selfies. I did a bunch of photos for the magazine with Ian in them, and they've just recently come out. So here you can see this is Ian and on the giant chair, and there were a few more. I mean, here was Ian with the Vikings on the chair. So it gives you a sense. So what I'm going to do is I'll show you the full-on pictures of these next week, and I'll talk a little bit about decisions I made with the lighting and the angles and some of the obstacles we had to overcome in order to create those kind of photos. What we'll also do then is there will be a critique section next week as well. So back into critique. So if you've got any photos that you would like any kind of feedback on, help you get past the sticking points, you have any questions related to photography, ideas, concepts you'd like to discuss, like a bit of feedback on, then make sure you put your pictures into if you're on Facebook, then go to the Understanding Photography with Kim Ayres Facebook group. Just type that in and you'll find it, and stick your images in there. Tell me what your sticking point is or what your question is, and I'll do. And if you don't do Facebook, go to email me, kim@kimayres.co.uk. Send me your image, and again, tell me what it is. Ask me your question. Tell me where your sticking point is with the photo, and I will include that in next week's critique section. So make sure you do that. So once again, thank you everyone so much for your input, for photos, for turning up, for the chat, and for the feedback. Last couple of comments here. Nurije saying thank you, Kim, and everyone else for inspiring photos. Stacy says this I found clever. Viji says looking forward to the giant chair and the Viking history. And Vandana says sounds fun. So, good night. Take care, and I'll see you all next week. Cheerio. Bye-bye.